You remember a Tuesday from years ago? Nothing happened on it. A patch of afternoon light on a wall. Someone's voice saying something you can't even use anymore. A smell, a color, the exact temperature of the air. It should have been deleted the second it ended. It wasn't. It's still here, sharp enough to touch, while 1,000 days that actually mattered have dissolved into nothing. Your brain kept the wrong one, and it did it on purpose. Here's the strange part. In November 2025, a team at Rockefeller University led by neuroscientist Priya Rajasethupathi published something in the journal Nature that quietly rewrites how we thought this worked. For decades, the assumption was simple. A memory forms, and then a single switch decides whether it is saved or lost. One decision, made once near the moment it happened. Her team found there is no switch. There is a chain of timers. When something happens to you, the memory first takes shape in a part of your brain called the hippocampus. But it does not stay there. Over the next hours and days, it gets passed forward, evaluated in the thalamus, then slowly rebuilt in the cortex, the outer surface of your brain where your oldest memories live. And at each handoff, a different set of genes switches on and off, like a relay of tiny clocks. Some of these clocks fire fast and burn out fast. When those are the only ones running, the memory quietly fades. Others turn on slowly, hours later, and when they engage, they give the memory a physical scaffold, a structure that holds it in place for years. So, whether you kept that random Tuesday was never decided in the moment. It was decided by which timers were still running long after the moment was gone. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the decision happens hours later, what tips it? Why that meaningless afternoon and not the wedding, not the interview, not the day you swore you would never forget? This is where it gets stranger, because part of the answer is that your brain edits the past. In 2015, Joseph Dunsmore and Elizabeth Phelps ran an experiment that sounds impossible when you first hear it. They showed people a stream of ordinary images, animals and tools and plain photographs, the kind of thing your mind drops instantly. Then, a little later, they made a second batch of related images matter by pairing them with a mild shock. Nothing surprising there. You would expect people to remember the frightening part. But something else happened. When they tested memory a full day later, people also remembered the earlier, boring images, the ones from before anything emotional occurred. Not all of them. Specifically the ones related to what later became important. The emotional event reached backward in time and rescued memories that were already fading. Memories that by every rule should have been gone. Sit with that. The moment you cared about did not just save itself. It went back and saved the ordinary things sitting near it, things that had no reason to survive on their own. Think about your own strange keepsakes for a second. The odd corner of a room, a stranger's face on a train, the taste of something you ate exactly once. You always assumed your mind held onto them by accident, that they slipped through some gap in the system. They did not slip through anything. Each one was caught and held down by a wave that came from somewhere nearby, something your memory decided was worth keeping and dragged them along with. Scientists have a name for the mechanism underneath this: synaptic tagging and capture, first worked out in animals by Frey and Morris. The rough idea is that a weak experience leaves a kind of chemical tag on the exact brain cells it touched, a faint bookmark. On its own, that bookmark decays and the memory dies. But if something powerful happens soon after and floods those same cells with the proteins a memory needs to become permanent, the tagged bookmark grabs them. The trivial moment gets built into something lasting on the back of a bigger one it happened to be near. Which means the random Tuesday you cannot forget may not be random at all. It might be standing next to something. Something that mattered enough to reach back and keep it, even if you can no longer see what that something was. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. If your brain can retroactively strengthen a memory that was already fading, then the vividness you feel, that certainty that this moment was significant, is not proof that it was. The clarity came afterward. Your brain decided it mattered, then rebuilt it to feel like it always had. You are not remembering the moment as it was. You are remembering the version your brain chose to keep, dressed in an importance it may have borrowed from something else entirely. So, the memories you trust most, the sharp ones, the ones that feel like bedrock, are exactly the ones that were rewritten the hardest. We tend to think of memory as a recording. Something happens, the camera rolls, the file is saved or deleted. But that is not what any of this describes. It describes a living thing that keeps deciding, for hours and days after you have walked away, what your past is going to be. Editing it, reaching backward, saving the strange, quiet things, and letting the important ones go for reasons it never shows you. Which leaves one question hanging. If your brain is still deciding, right now, which parts of today it will keep, then how much of what you call your life is the thing that happened? And how much is the edit? You remember a Tuesday from years ago. Nothing happened on it. And that may be the most honest thing your memory has ever told you. That it was never keeping the important days. It was keeping the ones it quietly chose long after you stopped looking. If this broke something in your brain, there is more where that came from.